Hughes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to speak to the purpose clause of this bill, sir, because I believe this purpose clause has a very chilling effect on student government for tertiary institutes in New Zealand. Sir, effectively what the Committee of the Whole is being asked to do is to legislate over the top of rights that students currently enjoy and have existing for them in law for the last 12 or 13 years, because some members of Parliament have decided they don't like what student government does. And so they have got a chilling agenda to try and stop the ability of student government advocating for students across our tertiary institutes in New Zealand, and taking away from them the rights they currently enjoy to change any aspect of that student government for them. The purpose clause for this bill, sir, are not the words written down on the bill tonight. The purpose clause, the real purpose clause of this bill is about adopting and pursuing a right-wing agenda to try and end student government and make it be a far less effective force in New Zealand. Secondly, sir, on a more personal level, this is about being nice to Heather Roy.
That's right.
The National Party members, like many Labour Party members actually, believe she was treated absolutely shoddily by the ACT Party and the bullies that exist in that organisation, because when this bill was in the name of Roger Douglas, the National Party MPs were totally dismissive of it. They thought it was a step too far. They thought there were some changes that could be made to the current legislation, and Labour and Green members have been open about debating that aspect of it. But we didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But after the way that Heather Roy was treated last year by the blokes in the ACT Party, all of a sudden the National Party said, well, look, we could be nice to Heather by supporting her bill to undermine and try and end student government and tertiary institutes around New Zealand. She is a nice woman, but she's not so nice that she should be the person responsible for getting rid of student government and tertiary institutes across the country to make her feel better. Look, we'll take her for coffee, we'll buy her a glass of wine, we'll do whatever she likes. We'll sit around and we can all say how much we think Rodney Hyde's a terrible person. We'll join it on that. Mr. Mallow suggests we can sing Kumbaya. That's all fine, we'll do that. But to make the member feel better, by supporting this law and undermining, as it does, the purpose clause of this legislation, undermining student government across our tertiary institutes, is just plain wrong. I want to ask the member in charge of the bill some questions. I'd like to ask her whether or not she believes in her heart of hearts that the kind of services that all students get to enjoy now, that have been built up over 100 years of a fully participative student government across our universities and polytechs, would exist if her bill had been law 100 years ago.
Hard to predict.
Hard to believe. Hard to predict. Well, such faith in her legislation. Such faith in her legislation. Of course the answer to that is no. Generations and generations of students have benefited from the work of student government and polytechs and universities that have been built up by the fact that everybody is part of it. Now,
so much fraud.
There was a number of years when they all had to belong, no question about it. But since the 1990s, they haven't all had to belong. They've had the ability to trigger referendum, as other colleagues have said, to have votes on that. I'll come back to that. They've had the ability to object to being a member of it and be able to not participate if they object on the grounds that's in the legislation. Now, in both of those areas, there's room for debate. Grant Robertson, has put up amendments to try and find a common ground certainly with ACT and more latterly with the National Party as they changed their position. For a while they were honouring their election commitment not to bring in legislation or support legislation like this, but they forgot about those commitments. And all it takes is 10% of students to trigger the referendum in order to pursue the sorts of things that Mrs Roy tells us are important to her. 10% is not much. Well, I mean, admittedly, I know 5% feels like a mountain to the ACT Party at the moment. I can see that they might look at that 10% figure and think, OK, that's almost mission impossible. But actually, on a campus, let's not be mean about Rodney. Let's leave that to the people of Epsom. But I think, sir, that getting 10% of students to sign a referendum is not a difficult thing at all. We already have this ability for choice in our tertiary institutes, and this is what they are taking away. In a weird back-to-front way, this is the National ACT government putting their nanny state political views onto students. They're saying, we want to try and destroy student government. We can't come out and just ban it because the Second World War was about that kind of thing. But what we'll do instead is put in place every possible impediment to those kinds of student government being a success. And I just think that's plain wrong, sir. That's why the purpose clause should reflect what the desire of this right-wing rabble over there really is. And so I have helpfully to the committee, put up 3 amendments which would amend the purpose clause. Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman.
Call Sue Kedsley.